excited, not just for the lineup of this amazing event, but for the amazing topics and the incredible discourse that we are preparing to have. I'm so very pleased to see that we already have our speakers on the call. Permit me to just quickly say a quick good morning to all our amazing speakers. Good morning, Victor Tafa. How are you doing today, sir?
Good morning, everyone. I'm doing great. Thanks a lot. Good morning, Miss
Mm,
Mark.
Amazing. It's so good to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. For those of us that don't know, Victor Tafa is actually a very valued member of the Brains and Banter community, and just keeps wanting to hear him speak. So thank you so much, sir, for gracing us with your presence today. It's so good to see you. Good morning again to everyone that's just joining us on the call. We're very excited and very delighted to be here having this conversation with you this morning. In just a few minutes, we're going to be getting down to the business of the day. The topic of our conversation today is heritage and heroes, navigating impact and identity in the diaspora. It's a really special day because we are gathered not just for an engaging event, but to celebrate an incredible milestone. This October, the Brains and Banter community and movement turned 7 years. It's been 7 years of banter that matters. It's been 7 years of groundbreaking and transformational conversations that are chasing the course of history right before our eyes. Today's event, that is themed Heritage and Heroes, marks our ninth gathering, actually. That's our ninth event. This journey has begun all the way from January 2018 with our first event, Brains, Gains, or Drains. I don't know how many of us remember that event. I know that we have such an engaged community here at Brains and Banter, and I'm so happy to see that some of the beautiful faces and some of the beautiful voices that were part of that conversation are also here today. Along this journey, we've had so many groundbreaking events. We did our Are You Okay in the UK event, and today we are going to be stepping into heritage and heroes. We're set for such an impactful conversation, this heritage, identity, immigration, and impact. And we're going to be looking at the ways that the leverage of our heritage gives us a platform upon which to become heroes. I cannot explain and I cannot contain or express how truly excited I am at the conversation that we're going to be having today. Of course, I cannot start this meeting without celebrating, welcoming, acknowledging, appreciating, spotlighting, highlighting the convener of this truly amazing platform. Dr. Alo is on the call today, and not just is it a privilege for us to have her with us today as the founder and convener, she will also be speaking this morning. Good morning, Dr. Alo. It is so good to see you on the call today, ma'am.
Good morning, Miss Mark, and thank you so much for all the hard work that you've done behind the scenes in putting this together. Good
It's
morning.
an
Thank you.
absolute delight. Thank you so much, Ma. The Brains and Banter community is one that doesn't just exist for the purpose of chatter. No, we engage in banter that matters. This community is filled with intellectuals, groundbreaking impact makers, and the purpose of our conversations is to identify points and options, opinions, potentials, and opportunity for us to continue to make impact within our communities. I am absolutely delighted also to have the presence of our co-founder, the silent supporter, the mover and the shaker. I like to call him the stalwart support. Good morning, Mr. O. Thank you so much for lending your voice to these conversations. Thank you so much for all that you do behind the scenes. I know that Mr. O will be speaking a little later on, but it's very to have everyone on the call. I would just like to mention that this is to be a very interactive session. Again, we are going to be engaging in banter that matters. Our community will lend our voice, and that's, of course, what we are going to be doing this morning. So I would like to encourage everyone on the call, please feel free to engage with this conversation. You can do so with your emojis. I know that there are members of the community that are what I like to call our emoji warriors. I love to see our emoji warriors. So please, please, please engage with your emojis. Please engage in the chat room. Please engage with your questions. And I am so excited for a truly brilliant conversation today. One more introduction while I wait for our second speaker, Mr. Amos. I'm sure that he will join us soon. It is my utmost delight and my absolute pleasure to be inviting and to be recognizing my co-host and my support for this event, Mr. Abimbola Afua. Mr. Abimbola Afwakwe is a marketing savant, for lack of a better word, and he has a particular interest in telling African stories to a global audience. Good morning, Mr. Abimbola. It's so good to see you this morning. How are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you, Ms. Mark. It's great to see everyone. Good morning, Mr. Victor Taffer. Good morning, Dr. Ando.
Good morning, Mr. Abimbola. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. Really quickly, because we have some, new members of the audience, new members of our community in this conversation. What is one thing that our audience can look forward to taking away from our conversation today?
So, one of the first things that I can assure you, you will take so much value. One of the things that Brains and Banter has done over the years is to be very impactful. We don't just add value, we allow the value to become a lifestyle, and it becomes your day-to-day activity at some point, because we're not just looking at how, to talk about problems, we're also looking at how to be solution providers at the end of the day. And as much as it looks like we're into the education sphere, we are also concerned about everything concerning Africa and our heritage. So I believe that today, trust me, there's going to be so much value on the table for you to take home with.
Nothing short of the truth. The cornerstone of the Brains and Banter community is conversations that matter. Intellectual discussions, beg your pardon. Major and most important takeaway from this conversation will be value. So thank you so, so much for that. We're very, very grateful. All right, Dr. Alo, I am giddy. I am excited. I would love to introduce you, welcome you for your welcome speech and your opening notes for this event. Would you please join me with your emoji applause as I welcome our truly amiable convener for her welcome address, Dr. Alo. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Miss Mark. Thank you very much, Mr. Beams. Many thanks to our amazing speakers on the call. Mr. Victor Taffer, you've been a part of this community for so long, and it's always a pleasure and a delight to have you on the panel speaking with us. Thank you so much, sir, for your dedication through the years. We are so grateful. Wow. So we're gathered this morning to talk about heritage and heroes. And as I was preparing for this, I said to myself, when we think of heroes, why do we only think of people that have come and gone, right? Like we shouldn't limit our understanding of heroes to those who have long gone. We actually have everyday heroes that we can learn from. And one of the things I'll be speaking about later on today is how can these heroes bridge the gap between their own understanding of heritage and this changing society and the current generation, because there's something to be said for the preservation of culture, particularly the strong aspects and the strong dimensions of our culture, because there's immigration and there's integration. So it's one thing to move, it's one thing to migrate, it's one thing to be part of another society, right? But there are things that have made that society become who they are and what they are. And as we try to integrate with another set of people, another society, how do we preserve our culture in that process of integration? Because it's very easy to lose who we are if we're not intentional about preserving our culture. There's something I've heard two people say that really makes me laugh a lot. Two parents said this to me. They said that they've said to their children, inside this house is the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Outside is the United Kingdom. In this home, we are Nigerians. This is who we are. This is what we do. We are respectful. We are this, that, and the other. But we understand that outside, it's the United Kingdom, it's the United States, it is Canada. However, we must understand that we are raising biracial children, right, who are more in tune with a different understanding of society than we understand it, and that even our parents understood society to be. But our heritage is the rich one, and it's one that shouldn't be lost in the process of integration. One of the things Mr. Beam said that I really, really liked is the fact that we're not just about conversations, because Africans are fantastic at conversations. We are so good at talking the talk, but do we walk the walk? How do we actually put our mouth and our hands or our legs where our mouth is? And one of the things we really want to begin to do at Brains and Banter is to see how we can support actions. What can we do that takes us beyond the conversation? But the conversations do matter, because at the end of the day, it is from these places of conversations that the change begins to happen, because the mind begins to change, and illumination happens differently, and we live our lives differently on the back of the illumination that we get from these conversations. I really would implore you to please pay close attention, because you will know when you hear what you need to hear. I know some of you may be in the kitchen at this time, or you're on the move, or you actually sat down in your office. Thank you so much for wherever you're logging on from. We're so delighted that you're part of this. And it is our desire that you would really catch some amazing insights today that would transform the way you live your life, but more importantly, help you to preserve our rich heritage even as we live our lives in the diaspora. So thank you, Miss Mark. Over to you.
Quite the stir. Absolutely delightful, absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much, ma'am, for that charge. Quite the stirring charge. I would just like to build upon what you said in saying that as a community, not just are we talking, but as a community, we are investing our energies into actions that are actually making change. And so we're not just initiating these conversations to break ground and to stir the ground, as it were, for systemic change, but we're actually engaged in activities and actions that promote this change. And during this call, we're going to be sharing some of them with you. I would just like to appreciate again everyone on this call and to spotlight all of us. When Dr. Alo was speaking, she says she doesn't know, and I don't know either. While when we say heroes, we think of our heroes that are dearly departed. Absolutely not. On this call are giants of industry, change makers across the board, and it is an honor and privilege to have you as part of this community. All right, we are going to be going straight into this conversation, and it is my absolute delight to recognize and to appreciate the presence of our first speaker. Good morning, Mr. Amos. Thank you so much for joining the call. How are you doing today? Are you excited for this conversation? Mr. Amos, if you're speaking, we can't hear you.
Sorry, how are you, Miss Mark? Good morning.
I'm very well. I'm very well, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Amos. It's so good to see you. It's always a delight to hear you speak, and our audience is so excited. I'm going to be going straight into it because we're so excited to get started, and I'm going to be starting with reading the bio of our first speaker, who is Mr. Amos Taffa. Mr. Amos Taffa is a medical physicist, an educator, an author, and a lifelong advocate for academic and personal excellence. I beg your pardon. Originally from Nigeria, Amos moved to the United States to pursue his bachelor's degree in chemistry with a minor in philosophy. A scholar at heart, he became deeply engaged in the philosophy of science, biochemistry, cell and molecular biology, leading him to work alongside a microbial geneticist in research and pursue further studies in medical physics and health physics. In 2015, Amos founded the Learning Institute for Excellence, a tutoring and educational program aimed at strengthening student skills in math and science. His dedication to academic achievement has led him to publish several books, including Achieving Excellence as a Young Person and Tools for Mastering Mathematics, all with the aim of inspiring African youth to pursue excellence with purpose. Amos continues to mentor and educate, drawing on his podcast, Living Sensibly, to share insights on character development and purposeful living. With his beautiful wife, Stephanie, he parents 7 children, balancing his academic passions with a commitment to family and faith. Currently pursuing a PhD in chemistry at North Dakota State University, Amos's life work revolves around inspiring others to maximize their potential and live with integrity and intention. Taking us on a topic today titled Identity and Roots, please join me with a round of applause as I have the privilege to welcome the truly brilliant Amos Taffa. Welcome, sir. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Ms. Mark. Thank you for your kind introduction. Good morning, everybody. Well, it's about 5 a.m. in the U.S. where I live, but good afternoon, good morning. I'm excited to be here. And today I'll be sharing with you about the importance of identity and our heritage. So why is it crucial to stay connected to one's cultural heritage and roots while living in the diaspora? That's one of the main topics I'll be discussing. I'm going to talk a little bit about my background, and then I'll dive into that topic. Ms. Mark, remind me, is it about 10 minutes or 15?
It's about 15, sir. 15,
okay, no problem. And so, so I'll start right from the top. I was born in Adamawa State in Yola in Adamawa State in Nigeria. My parents are from Garkida. This is going to come back later on as I talk about influences and, who I am today and just some of the lessons that I learned growing up and that I want to instill in my children. I moved to Lagos when I was about 6.5 years old. That was a big change. Going from the Northeast to Lagos. And as I think back on my life, some of the earliest memories come from my days in Lagos. But one of the other parts of my life, so not only growing up in the Northeast till about 6.5, but as far as the church heritage, I was a part of a church called Equa. And that's also very important in the story because some of the influences of my life would be people like the pastors that I had growing up. And so I attended Air Force Primary School in Lagos and then Federal Government College, Lagos. Air Force Primary School. So it's interesting when you think of heritage and inheritance and you think about the different factors that go into making a person who they are. We could talk about our family. We could talk about our schools. And I would say that Air Force Primary School was one of the best things that happened to me. And I remember asking my father just a few years ago why he chose Air Force for me. I said, why did you choose that? And this is part of the heritage, right? Because my father valued education. He valued learning. And without him necessarily telling me, Amos, you need to value ABC, the way he valued it, he was instilling something in me. And so one of my earliest memories I remember was looking for paper and pencils and pens and wanting to write from when I was in elementary school. So when I was at Air Force Primary School, it was a rigorous academic program, but there was a lot of discipline, which was also very important to what we're talking about today, because what they instilled in me was the idea of learning self-control. And so this was back in, the 90s. And so I graduated, went to Federal Government College Janiki, where they also instilled discipline and respect. And some of these aspects of my life today come from those, years in school. Now, so I have my influence from my parents, influence from my school, influence from my church. There's all these layers, and this is going to come in together as we transition to my time in America. And so in 2007, I came to America for my bachelor's degree. Initially, I was going to be a pediatrician because I wanted to inspire the young people to pursue excellence. I wanted them to do surgeries like Ben Carson did. And that was the mindset I had with pediatrics. I wanted to inspire young people by, in the evenings while I worked during the day as a doctor. That was my idea. But I found out that the best way to really inspire them at the level I wanted to inspire them at was to be an educator. So I moved out of the sort of the medical space to more of the education space to try and spend more time with the young people that I wanted to impact. And that's why I ended up in the education space. My story is a little different. You don't meet a lot of Nigerians who have spent time in the education space in America as an educator. That's actually rare. Most Nigerians here are doctors, lawyers, engineers, executives, and that's fine. Don't get me wrong. But for me, I loved math, I loved science, and I loved the idea of instilling excellence in math and science to students. When I was a student in Nigeria, I was the president of JETS Club, right? Junior Engineers, Technologists, and Scientists. So I had a strong background in science and math coming from Nigeria. So now so that's my background, right? Nigeria gave me a solid platform, a very wonderful education. And I thank God for all of that rigor that I got while I was in Nigeria. So then I show up in America and I came with a few things. I came with certain sort of, if you want to call it, inheritances or heritage. Number one was gratitude, right? I came with gratitude partly because I understood what it was like to live without the luxuries that some of the people here have. So I remember carrying buckets of water up and down the stairs, and my brother Dauda, was definitely, he could testify to it, and all the hard work that we had to do when we didn't have all the luxuries that we have here. So that gratitude really has opened doors for me in terms of just being grateful for opportunities that present themselves. Number two, of course, is hard work. The hard work has really has really helped big time, because right from my teenage years, I had to apply myself to working hard and taking initiative. And so those traits have transferred over. And then, of course, respect, which my parents emphasized. I spent a lot of time with my mother growing up because my dad was transferred around the country. He worked for Nitel. But my dad taught us the scriptures. My dad encouraged us to grow in truth. But my mother was one she taught us a lot about hard work. She taught us a lot about, being grateful. And so the influence of a mother on a child, I mean, it is just unbelievable what that can do. And that's part of my story, is the influence of my mother on me. And then my father on sort of some of the things he exposed me to, like classical music, which I know is strange because classical music is not from my village. But my dad went to school in England. And so he had, of course, learned some things about Handel, and he gave it to me. And so part of the love for learning my dad instilled in me is part of why I've been able to write a lot of books and inspire a lot of people in education today. And I've heard many Americans tell me that they are amazed by my passion for learning and education. But that goes back to my heritage. That goes back to realizing what people did back in the day to get educated. I mean, my dad told me stories of people that would have to swim across some sort of river near where he grew up in order to go to school. They would put their uniform in a bag and swim and go get an education. They knew the value of learning, right? And so when I showed up in America, for me, it's not just about passing a test. It's about learning well and seeking to go above and beyond. And so those lessons that my dad shared and shares with me are some of the things that really inspire me to want to provide the highest quality education for every child. So I highlighted a few things, and I want to give some examples, and then I'll begin to land my plane. So here are some traits that I think are key, some things that I believe are helping me have a strong sense of identity here. The family, the traits for my dad and my mother and my uncles and my aunties that I watch: gratitude and respect. Very important traits there. Give me 1 second here. I'm just going to pull up my notes back here. Okay, so we have gratitude, we have respect, we have initiative. I want to pause and talk about initiative and leadership for a second. So when I was in Nigeria, there were a lot of opportunities for leadership that were available. One of them would be, being the head boy. So I ended up being the head boy at Federal Government College, Lagos. And you learn a lot when you're put in situations of leadership. And so when I think about the initiative I had to take, being the head boy, we had to go to a place called C School, Apapa. And there's something that happened during that time that I think is very crucial for parents as they're instilling this in their children. During our time at C School, Apapa, we had we had different chores. But there was a day where I wasn't necessarily assigned to do a specific task, and I went ahead and took initiative, and the man recognized it. I wasn't doing it because I wanted him to see me do it. I didn't know he was looking at me, but this man later called me and was very impressed that I took initiative to do something, and they made me, every day they pick someone to lead the camp, and so they gave me a chance to lead. Now, I bring that up because when you live in diaspora sometimes, the youth are very used to, well, that's not my role, so I'm just going to do my thing over here. I don't need to do that. That's somebody else's role. But there are opportunities that might present themselves where you just need to take initiative. And by taking initiative, you're opening doors. There's opportunities people are seeing. And it's just that opened the door for me. And since that time, I tell my children now and I tell my students, taking initiative matters. And so when I remember, part of my heritage is watching my brothers, watching my parents, watching my siblings take initiative, take action. When you're walking on the street and there's something that is out of place that can be put into place without a lot of hassle, well, why don't you take initiative and make it right? That is part of what, I think about growing up, is always going above and beyond. That idea of always going above and beyond and then, of course, also acknowledging where you fall short and learn from your mistakes. These are things that I definitely learned growing up. Okay, so let me give you a quick example of the danger of not having a sense of identity. So in America, there are a lot of people that are like fourth generation removed from their original, like from their grandparents who came from Scotland, for example. And so they don't really have a lot of traditions that they keep to, or a lot of things that they are carrying on, because they are far removed from where where their ancestors came from. The problem then becomes they're living now just kind of wandering and not having any direction. For me, I thank God that I can trace my roots back, right, to Garkida, to Adamawa State, to a heritage of gratitude and respect and hard work. And I remember who I represent in that sense. And unfortunately, some people don't have some of that. Now, the good news, of course, is that there are other places you can find a solid identity and like your faith, like my faith as a Christian also is a pillar. But what I'm saying is that, unfortunately, some people don't have a pillar. And so we see a lot of young people getting into trouble sometimes because they don't have that foundation. So where do we go from here? One of the things I want to encourage parents, in diaspora and those who are in Africa still also, is that, with the strong heritage in education and educational excellence, especially from Nigeria and from certain parts of Nigeria, it is important to remember that our children are literally the next generation of groundbreaking scientists, hopefully, God willing, because they have a strong heritage of educational excellence, and then they get exposed to resources in the country they've moved to. So, for example, if they've moved to America or the UK, here they are with a lot of resources. What are they going to do with those resources? Are they going to slack and go back and just relax and not work hard? Or are they going to step it up and say, I have a strong heritage. My parents have shown me the value of education. How can I take it to the next level? There are many people in America who did not give themselves to educational excellence, and they're doing okay today because America has certain opportunities that you can maybe tap into. But imagine if they gave themselves to educational excellence. Imagine if they applied themselves to go above and beyond and then tapped into the resources around them. They can go to the next level. That's the advantage, I think, that the Africans have. That's the advantage, I would say, that certain people have, is that we know what it's like to, we know the value of education. We see what it's done, and we have a solid STEM, especially, I think of STEM, sorry, I always go back to STEM, science and math. We think of it, we have a solid background from all those teachers that are sweating hard. What can we do to raise the bar when we move to whatever country we move to? Bring that tradition, bring that heritage, that of gratitude, of respect, of hard work, and then use the resources around you to take it to the next level, and then lift others up from wherever you're at, right? And so that's one of my hopes and aspirations, God willing, is to be a light here and connect people there with the resources here so that they can be elevated to excel in their studies and whatever they've been called to. So that's the crux of what I want to address when it comes to heritage and identity. I believe, again, I am what I am today because of the opportunity, for my family and from my heritage. And of course, I want to thank Dauda, even who's on this call, who labored hard in driving me and helping me when I was a student and inspiring me to keep working hard. And I told him if I win the Nobel Prize, I'm going to give him a cut. And so that's part of what I think really matters is recognizing how our family's traditions can really propel us. And let's do our best to raise the bar wherever we are.
Wow. First of all, very, very wonderful speech. Very, very wonderful moment. Well done, Mr. Amos. And thank you so much for sharing. You just let the cat out of the bag a little bit, because part of my introduction of Mr. Victor is how he's your big brother. But thank you so much for sharing that. I think that part of the things that you mentioned, you are living proof of them in seeing the lengths and the heights to which yourself and Mr. Victor have achieved by virtue of your heritage and your upbringing. And I must say, a major, major well done. Thank you for sharing some of those stories. Some of the names that you pronounce. I live in Nigeria. I am in Nigeria. I don't think I've ever heard of some of these places that you describe. And that just goes back to the point of what we're talking about. If we don't tell our stories, who's going to tell them for us? If we don't instill our heritage, who is going to instill them for us? One of the things that you said when you were speaking that I took away is the fact that our heritage and access to our heritage is actually leverage. It gives us an edge. I want you to just elaborate on that, because the experience of many Africans, especially in the diaspora, is being reduced to being Black. It's being reduced to existing as just a Black person. And outside of conversations like this, and outside of platforms, and outside of communities like Brains and Banter, there are very few platforms and societies and opportunities wherein Africans, especially in the diaspora, are conscious of the fact that the African heritage and connection to it is leverage. So would you please just expand on that point for me? Because that's something that I really, really took away. The fact that our connection, you mentioned that some of these values, you mentioned respect, you mentioned hard work, you mentioned gratitude, you mentioned taking initiative, are some of the things, some of the pillars that have propelled you to reach the heights that you have reached. Why is it that many Africans are unable to address or recognize some of these values as an advantage more than a detraction, as it were?
Yes, give me 1 second here. I actually have a note on that. One of the things I wanted to emphasize is we should be the thermostat and not the thermometer wherever we find ourselves. I remember they used to say that quote back in Nigeria, and what they're saying essentially is that we shouldn't be controlled by our atmosphere to the point that it dilutes us, in a sense, right? There are certain people that have never met someone with conviction before, and Africans tend to come sometimes with conviction on certain issues, and we can allow our environment to affect the tone of our conviction, almost like we hide because we don't want to be rejected because we stand firm on certain principles we hold to. But that's not true. That's not valid. We need to learn that if we stand for certain things and we might stand out, as long as we're doing our jobs well, then it's all is well. And we need to do our jobs well, but then we need to stand with conviction. I think of Daniel in the Bible as example. He moved to Babylon, but that didn't mean that he basically allowed that to affect him. He was in Babylon, but he still remained solid in what he believed. So I think for Africans, we need to leverage again. Like, there is so much of a privilege, honestly, and an advantage in really seeing, seeing humans seek to go above and beyond. Sometimes there's hustling that we learn in Nigeria, right? I remember in Lagos, when you want to go to certain places and you have to get on the bus, you're not going to be passive. You have to take action. You have to know what you're doing, where you're going. That idea of taking action. Unfortunately, let me say this. I have watched African families come to America, and I've watched their kids drop down to apathy. I have seen it too many times. And it is very unfortunate because, again, it's the danger of Deuteronomy chapter 8, I call it, which is where abundance can lead to apathy. That's a reality. Abundance can lead to apathy. We know that. However, if you can keep your child having a vision, which Dr. Allo knows how much I love talking about vision, but when you get your children having a vision, it really helps. And so you have kids who show up here, and here's the cultural context. The cultural context here is, I don't need to decide what I want to do with my life until I'm 18 or 19. I can just drag my legs and blah, blah, blah. But imagine if an African family comes here with the same passion that we have in Africa, where in primary 5, I want to be a neurosurgeon. You know what you want to do with your life. So you come with that vision-mindedness, and then you find yourself in this culture. You literally take over. Go ahead. Like, there is nothing stopping you because you know where you're going, right? So that's an advantage African families have that they might not realize. Unfortunately, some of them might buy into the cultural tone of, let Johnny decide later on, let him decide. What they don't realize is, no. It's a good thing you brought from Africa. Hold to that tradition of helping your child to have a vision and to carry on. And so, yeah, I think that the leverage, we need to leverage this desire to excel. We need to instill it in our children the best we can and not allow them to settle down to the lowest common denominator of society wherever they find themselves, especially if they're in America and the UK. This might not be the case in other countries, but I know those two especially, that there's a lot of things that can distract these kids, and the parents need to leverage on the educational excellence and the heritage they have from that. Yeah, that's something I wanted to mention as well. I did see a quick chat question. I was going to say, I don't know if you want me to answer it, but I can wait. But I did see a quick question in the chat as well.
Thank you so much, Mr. Amos. I knew that you were going to catch that. We're actually going to keep all the questions because we have a great banter. We're going to call it less banter, where we're going to shred some of these things apart. And so I'm really looking forward to that section. So I know I've had the privilege of having you on events before. I know you caught that question. We're going to get to that, and we're going to have such a good time. Thank you so much for answering that question and answering it so fully. And you're absolutely right. Letting our children fall to the level of apathy because they're in other environments doesn't do them well. When Dr. Allo was speaking, she said she knows of families that have declared their homes the United States of Nigeria. That consciousness, that knowledge of being in but not being part of is so important. And it's very, very necessary to begin to inculcate with words and with actions to our children, begin to model some of these heritage that we have received from our own parents in preparation for the next generation to take over the world. So thank you so much, sir. I'm so grateful. Please give a round of applause to Mr. Amos again for that truly exciting, groundbreaking conversation. I am so grateful. Thank you so much, sir. All right, before we jump straight into the next speaker, I just want to encourage everyone. I want to appreciate everyone that's on the call. Please leave your questions. Please engage with the call. We're going to get right into the question and answer session. I know that for many people, that's really the icing on the cake, and they're looking forward to that banter. I am as well. But I want to crave your indulgence. Please leave your questions. Please leave your engagement, and we are having a truly swell time. All right, I'm going to be going right on to our next speaker, who interestingly and very, for lack of a better word, awe-inspiringly is elder brother to our previous speaker, Mr. Victor Dauda Tafa. Victor Dauda Tafa is an impact entrepreneur, award-winning speaker, corporate MC, and mentor whose influence reaches across continents. As the author of The Seasons of Life, Tools to Cultivate the Best in You, he has dedicated his career to inspiring a new generation of African leaders, empowering them to create impactful change in their communities. Born in the UK and raised in Nigeria, Victor began his educational journey at Command Children's School, Yola, attended King's College in Lagos, and later completed his BSc in Geography at the University of Maiduguri. After returning to the UK to gain experience, he has worked with a major intercity railway company focusing on staff safety and operational training. Victor's commitment to leadership leadership development has led him to mentor youth across Nigeria, Kenya, Rwanda, Malawi, and Ghana. His work with the Department for Work and Pensions in the UK has further supported young people of Black and minority ethnic backgrounds in building confidence for career success. Co-founder of Generation Nehemiah, a social enterprise committed to creating sustainable wealth in Nigeria, Victor also heads the 824 Group Limited and 824 Properties Limited with his gorgeous wife, Edna. His advocacy for community impact is evident through his leadership, mentorship, and cross-continental engagements, making him a powerful voice, for transformation across the African diaspora. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the Brains and Banter community, please put your virtual hands together as I welcome to the panel this morning, Mr. Victor Tafa. Good morning, sir. It's a delight to have you here.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here, and thank you so much for the wonderful intro, Miss Mark. I think, you know, when a bio is read, sometimes you get scared and think, "Oh my Lord, can I deliver on this bio?" But hey, let's go for it. And thank you so much, Amos, for laying the foundation for me. I think it makes my job a lot easier. I want to appreciate everyone for being here, and thank you so much. It's Saturday morning. We're all up nice and early. We're here to learn. I believe there's some people watching on YouTube too, so you're all welcome. Everyone is appreciated here. Dr. Alo, thank you so much for inviting me back. I must have said the right things for you to invite me back, because if I said the wrong things before, I would not be invited back. I think it's about the second or third time I'm speaking here. I've had the honor too of emceeing this event at some point too. And also I want to thank Mr. O, as you call him, the great man who is behind the woman. I really, really respect men who give their women the platform to fly. I think, you know, it's one of the biggest challenges we have in the world. But I'm so pleased when I see a man who is very, very confident behind a woman and allows her to fly. I give him so much respect. So, Mr. O, I know you're on the call. I know your face is hiding somewhere, but hopefully we'll see you later. But yeah, thank you so much for supporting this woman. Thank you for the great work that she's actually doing. And we appreciate you all. Yeah, so we're going to go straight in. I think I've been given the hardest topic, which because it's such a sensitive one. But not to worry, I've said my prayers this morning. I've had a cold shower, so I think I'm firing on plenty of engines. And I'm willing to take all the whatever comes with it. So I'm just going to speak confidently. I'm going to speak my heart. I'm going to speak my mind. We're talking about heritage. We're talking about heroes. I believe every one of us is here in the UK, around the world, building a very strong heritage. And I believe that we're all heroes in our own ways, one way or another. I've been told to look at practical strategies for excelling despite challenges like systemic racism and microaggressions, and also understanding how systemic racism and subtle microaggressions can challenge one's professional and personal journey in a foreign land. I believe we're all journeying here. We're willing to make an impact in these countries here. What I believe to a very large extent, one of the things that hold us back could be, it's not always the case, but it could be racism. And I know it exists. I'm not going to dispute that fact. But I, as a person, I look at it differently, and I think about it differently for many people. So I might say a few things here which you might not agree with me, but don't worry. It's called Brains and Banter, and that's why we're allowed to say things here. And when I looked at the topic, and I was thinking about how do I approach this topic? Because I didn't want to just talk about the ordinary stuff. I wanted to focus on transformation. I wanted to focus on personal responsibility. What can we do as people, ourselves? How can we navigate this? It's there. So we will have to just find a way of navigating it ourselves. And I think that's what's really, really important for us here as we live in the diaspora. And not either in the US or in America, wherever you are, I mean, in the UK, wherever you are in the world, I know it's going to exist one way or another, but how do we navigate these things from a place of personal responsibility and from a place of transformation? That's why I look at it mainly. I want to focus more on the positive. I don't want to go around, beating around the bush, trying to look at all the things that happened before, whatever it is now. But I think we got to a point where we have to just focus on, look, how can we move ourselves forward? Now, one thing I've been learned over the years is when you move to a foreign country, you're shaped very, very powerfully by, if someone said to me one day, the person that picks you from the airport when you arrive in a country shapes you massively. Now, when you live in England, Heathrow Airport is quite far from everywhere. So either someone meets you at the airport by Heathrow. When I came here newly, it was a very good family friend of ours called Grace. She met me at the airport, and we go on the underground. I remember we traveled all the way to, showed me how to get to my uncle's house that was staying in North London. And the conversations you have on that journey, either the cab driver or still gives you that foundation of how your thinking is shaped in the country. Also, where you choose to live, people you choose to hang out with, maybe the church you go to, it shapes your thinking. And sometimes someone might say to you when you arrive, this country is very racist, so be careful. Don't do certain things. Don't go to certain areas. And once they said that to you, your brain might begin to build on that. And before you realize, you could possibly create a glass ceiling for yourself. And not realizing that you've actually built that ceiling and you refuse to step out and do anything great because you're constantly thinking, if I go there, I'm going to get bitten. And that's why nobody actually makes that move. Now, I'm going to go now and make 3 powerful statements. Now, the statements sound crazy, but stay with me till the end because I'm going to just make the statements. I'm going to speak around them, and then I'm going to talk about practical steps, and then we wrap up. I'm looking at the clock now. I've got 10 minutes. I'm going to wrap that all up in 10 minutes that I've got left now. Now, one thing that's very important is, number one statement I'm going to make is, I've lived in the UK for 22 years. And as Amos just spoke earlier now, I was actually born in the UK, but I moved back to Nigeria, just to give some background. And when I moved back to Nigeria, I returned to UK when I was about 25, 26 years old. I was lost count of when I actually came back to UK now. But I think I've been here for about 22 years now on my return. Now, I've lived in the UK for 22 years. And if someone comes to me and says to you, Victor, have you experienced racism? My answer is actually going to be no. And that sounds crazy because you said to me, Victor, how can you live in the UK for 22 years and tell me you've never experienced it? Now, the word here is experience. If you go into a shop and you decide, I want to, the experience you have in that shop. Sometimes people go into places looking for faults. And because they're looking for faults, they will find the faults. So in my own case, has it been done? Has it come towards me? Most likely, yes. But do I pay attention to it? Because since I came here, I made up my mind, I'm not going to pay attention to things like this. And I chose to do that. So maybe I built a bubble around myself. I don't know whether I'd call it a bubble, about myself based on that. And that's one thing I look at most of the time. Now, I've been to several places, and there are times in which I walk into a place and I look around and think, I'm the only Black person here. We've gone on holidays several times with my wife, and she can tell you that. We get on a plane, in the whole plane, with only 2 Black people in the whole plane. We've been on holidays with my kids too. On a whole flight from London to wherever we're going to, we had only 5 Black, I've got 3 kids, with only 5 Black people on that plane. And at no point did we ever feel out of place or someone acted different towards us. In fact, we've been on a holiday before in Germany where we were the only person in the whole resort, we're the only Black people in the whole resort in Germany. We're the only ones that could speak English. So I put myself in areas in which there are opportunities for that. But because I blocked my mind out of it, I built a big bubble around myself because of the way I'm thinking about the whole thing. I focus on it. I've not allowed it to get to me and to restrict me. And that's the main thing. That's one thing I did initially. Secondly, no one is born a racist. Absolutely nobody's born a racist. It's always a product of the environment. And that's one thing I strongly believe. When we saw the riots in London and things going on, I looked at the people then, I looked at them with compassion because I felt so sorry for them. I was saying, how can someone get himself into this state? But it's the environments in which they found themselves, and that's where the key and major problem that they actually face. Now, I'll give you a good example. My youngest son, Nathan, he used to go to a boarding school in Moncton, and shout out to Dr. Alo, who shows him that organized that school for him. And he used to go to Moncton School all the way in Bath. And I remember he had a friend who came and spent a weekend with us, a white friend. And this young boy came down, boy, how old is my youngest son? He's 12 years old now, so he had 11, 12 years old. And he came down to our house, he ate our food, he spent the whole weekend, his mother drove him all the way down and dropped him off. They're not even Christians, but we have evening prayers in my house. He joined us for the prayers every evening. We went to church with him on Sunday morning. There was no sign. He did not feel out of place at all while he spent like 3 or 4 days with us. And when I was taking them back to school, I was sitting on the train with them on the train, and I look at him thinking, I'm like, this is amazing. This kid does not even see any color. He doesn't see anything. And for me, it was a clear example of this thing nobody's born that way. It's the environment they find themselves, and that's what drives them and puts them in that kind of place. So sometimes when we look at these people, we have to come from a place of compassion, as in, what happened to this person? What made this person to become like this? And that's what we have to sometimes look at these things sometimes. And then with most cases, that's the third statement now. Most cases of microaggressions. That's microaggressions is an indirect or subtle or unintentional. They come from a place of lack of knowledge. Several times this thing comes from lack of knowledge and lack of education. And so we need to thread with compassion, as I said earlier, because what's very common now is microaggression. Because systemic racism now is very difficult because Companies can build it, like back in the days, it was built into company profiles. Okay, a black person cannot be there. During the days of, there were things that were there in which, okay, there were places where a black man cannot come in here. So that was systemic. It was in the system. It's still in the system now, but it's still subtle now. What we face a lot of times now is microaggression. I remember at church one day, a guy was wearing a Nigerian outfit, and a white man said to him, he was like, oh, you must be brave to wearing that. Now, in my mind, I'm thinking, he was wearing a normal kaftan. But I thought about him and I said, that was out of ignorance, because that's our outfit. That's our attire. But what does he mean by you must be brave to be wearing that? It's a Nigerian outfit, So to me, and these are the kind of things that you get. And my brother said, you know what? That's total lack of education that has driven people in those kind of areas. I go on a train one day because I do some work at the company, so I have a first class pass. I joined the train when the train was halfway down the journey. Myself and another lady, a white lady. She's gone and sat down. I saw one of the guys which I knew. I was going to go and say hello to him. Then the girl that was walking in the first class section now comes to me and says, have you got a first class ticket? And I just laughed and just said, because I'm thinking, there's two of us that go on this train. There's a white woman and a black guy. And she's asking the black guy. And I could tell what it was. So that's a microaggression, you see? So when she realized I knew the people there and we're all joking and laughing with them, I went back and sat down. And then she now came into trying to cover it up by saying, oh no, I wanted to ask you if you wanted a drink. And I'm thinking, really? As in two of us go on this train. Why do you pick me to ask me? You see? So this is a kind of microaggression, because you think, okay, a black man in first class maybe is not normal. You see? But I said to myself, you know what? There's no need for that. She could allow me to sit down first before coming to ask me. And I just sat down and you're asking me. I'm like, come on, man. So when you look at things like that, you get these things happening around you. But I've learned to get from a place. I just felt sorry for her because she realized I didn't show her that I took any offense, but she's trying to defend me by saying, oh, I wanted to ask you if you wanted a drink. So these are things that we face when we go out every day in the world, and we see them every single time. But I look at microaggressions so much as it defines mainly. It just most of the time is unintentional, but they tend to realize it sometimes. And as a girl did, and she was trying to correct it at the end of the day. And that's one thing she actually faced. So as I begin to land my plane now, after making those three statements, I want to just give us practical steps. Number one is identity. I think identity is solid when it comes to things like this. Amos spoke a bit about identity. And I think, so I don't have to go into it deeply. When I moved to UK, I made up my mind that I am Nigerian and I will remain Nigerian. That's never going to change in any way, shape, or form. Yes, I hold a British passport. All my family does, but I am Nigerian. You can never, ever change that. When I roll out of bed every day, I decide and I say, I am Nigerian. And because my identity is so solid, we've heard that very common question they ask. Oh, where are you originally from? So what are you trying to say now? So I'm originally from somewhere and I'm Okrika somewhere. Is that what you're trying to say? Because why ask me original? Why put the word original in there? You can say to me, oh, where are you from? Then I can say to you, oh, I'm Nigerian. But what do you mean by original? So I'm original Nigerian, I'm Okrika, England. Is that what you're trying to tell me? Don't throw the word original in there for me, please. And we get that this thing. So you're original Nigeria, you're Okrika, Britico. No, I am Nigerian. End of story. It ends there. The passport is only a piece of paper, gets me through different countries, and that's what it is. End of story. And then secondly, I'll say, what value do you bring to the table? Do you know what? If someone is lying on a deathbed and you bring him a black doctor, he can be the worst racist ever. He cannot fight. He's not going to argue, because at that point, he just wants his life. He's just concerned about his life. I've been involved in a project, which I was taking up all of a sudden, and I couldn't work out why they took me off that project. And then after a while, they got stuck in the project. And the same person that took my project rang me and said, please, can you help me? And, and it was now in my own terms. Okay, do you need this? Do you need this? Do you need it? I'm like, and the person even said, I'm sorry things didn't land the right way the last time, but I hope you can help us out. And you know what? She called me on a day in which I was actually fasting. So I couldn't even say no because I was angry. So I couldn't say no because I'm thinking, you know what? I'm actually even fasting today. So she has picked the right day to call me now. So I cannot even be angry and carry the malice. So I said, you know what? Yes, don't worry, I'll help you out. So one minute you say, oh, we don't want you in the project because we're not sure you can deliver it properly. Secondly, you got stuck and then you call me again now. The same person said couldn't do it now. So all of a sudden now is the person you're calling and you're begging. You see? So it's because of the value you bring to the table. When you have to bring value to the table, nobody cares what color you are. They need your help. They'll come looking for you. And that's one thing we have to focus on solidly. And then thirdly, be at peace with everyone. I've observed some people who work in some companies, some black people. They turn up the company, they tell me some funny attitude, like a discount style, coming late, doing things anyhow. And then when they try and apply for jobs and they don't get it, they now be saying, oh, the people are being racist. And I look at them and say to myself, I said, Mike, I've been looking at you several times. The way you behave, the way you interact with people, it's not even right. You don't even talk to white people. You don't even, I'm like, look, you have to work with them. You have to work with them. You have to be part of this system because you're here already. But some people just be, no, these people, no. I'm like, man, calm down, And then because when that happens, we now start blaming it on them. Then I'm looking at saying, look, you did not play your cards right from the beginning. You're not integrated with the people. You're not interacting with them properly, and that's why now they're looking at you from a very funny angle, as in with the kind of funny attitude that you have. They feel, no, we can't work with this guy, and that's one thing we have to really know. We really have to check our attitude. Be at peace with everybody that we're actually around. Now, in the last 30 seconds that I have, I want to finish with the story now, because we're talking about heritage and we're talking about heroes now. Now, heritage, what we leave, the legacy that we actually build. Heroes, all of us are heroes, especially the parents on this place. We are the heroes to our children. We show them how to navigate and how to live the life in this country so we can create that impact for us. I'll tell you this story that broke my heart. A man got on a train with two of his children, a girl and a boy. The boy is maybe about 11 years old, the girl maybe about 8 years old. And when he got on this train, he went straight and sat in the first class section, or actually the standard premium section, actually. So I was observing everything going on now. Then when he was asked to present his ticket, he presents a standard class ticket. So the gentleman says to him, oh, would you like to pay the extra? He's like, no, I'm not going to pay. He said, okay, fine. You might want to take us to the standard class. He said, no, there were no seats there. Now, the train has 9 carriages. It has 6 standard class carriages, 1 standard premium, and 2 first class carriages. Now, the man said within the time he got on that train, he has walked through the whole 6 carriages already. That was in less than 1 minute. He has walked through 6 train carriages in less than 1 minute, and he has checked and not found any seat for him and his family to sit down. And that's what, so the guy said to him, I said, that was really quick. How soon? I said, when did you get on? He said, last stop. And you walked through the whole train already. Then the man starts arguing that he's being called a liar. Now, the truth was, he was lying, because it wasn't possible that he would have walked through 6 carriages in 1 minute. So he was lying. So number one, he was lying in front of his children. That's even the beginning of the whole story now. Now he's refusing to move. So he's going against the rules of the land, which is another problem now. Then what pained me the most was when the man decided to make a move and his daughter could see what was going on and she wanted to stand up and go. The son said to her, no, sit down there. That was an 11-year-old. He has watched his father tell a lie. He has watched his father break the rules. And now he's even joining his father in the whole process. And it broke my heart because they were Black people. And I said to myself, I said, this is what people are looking all around, seeing what's going on here. And they're looking at them thinking, this is not good. And so we got to be very, very careful. What we do, how we act, the heritage that we're believing. We are all heroes. We could be careful about the children that we're bringing up. Because that boy now is thinking it's okay to break the rules in society. It's okay to tell lies because his father was telling a blatant lie. It was 100% a lie the father was telling at that particular point because he never walked through the whole train, And then the boy was actually supporting the whole process. It really broke my heart. I said, what are we raising? We have to be careful. We are heroes. Be careful about the children that we're actually raising and make sure we're raising them right. Stay blessed. Love you all.
Wow. I probably sound like an ambulance, but once again, wow. Such a truly brilliant presentation, Mr. Victor. Thank you so much for sharing those personal stories. I love the way you walked us through what it really, really means. And the things that you said that sounded interestingly controversial actually were not. So thank you so much for sharing that. I know that the questions are already coming in, and we're going to get to that section. But there is something that you said that I made a note of that I would just like you to expand on. You mentioned that one of the things that really limits Africans in diaspora is not integrating into communities where they find themselves and being isolated, as it were. How do we balance that? The need to integrate, the need to be a part of and not be perceived as isolate or separate. Some of the things that you shared that do I want to say trigger these microaggressions from a place of ignorance? How do Africans in diasporan communities who want to stay connected to, who want to stay close to their heritage, integrate? How do they balance that integration while staying true to their heritage? How are we able to do that? You mentioned having a white child in the home and assimilating him into the family life in such a way that the boy was not even looked upon as a stranger. How do we replicate that within the communities we're in such that we stay connected, but we still integrate?
Yeah, solid question. I think we need to stay connected. We need to be integrated. So it's like you're trying to put your foot on both sides. And I think for me, it starts with identity. My children were all born here, obviously, but I made it clear to them right from the beginning that they are Nigerians. And they go to Nigeria very often. We're actually in Nigeria for Easter this year too. And even when we went to Nigeria, I've come to realize, actually, I'll go digress a bit now. I've come to realize that the children we're raising, their generation, are very hot on their connections to their roots. Now, all my boys have Nigerian names. They all have names from my village. And it's interesting because even one of my sons, when he went to another different school now, he was even saying he wants to be called with his Nigerian name. You know, I was watching my other son, the oldest one. He plays basketball, and he was playing basketball on his PS5. And when I looked at it, the name he actually has on his PS5 basketball is his Nigerian name. You know, it's not even, his name is David, but he's using his traditional name on the basketball game. So I realized that we need to guide them in the right direction. Now, in as much as they're all born here, we made sure they all had names for my village, which I think is very, very important. And so that's one way we need to have that. So we're building that background for them, giving them that solid identity, which I think is really important for all of us. I see Nigerians who move to UK, who when you're talking to them, they say to you, nah, forget that, I'm not Nigerian, you see. And the reason why some people feel the racism so much is because they're trying to ignore one side, and they're trying to move to the other side. But the other side is saying to you, you're not part of us, you know? And so it feels really bad because now you're hanging on the fence. And when you sit on a fence, it hurts. You know, even physically, you try climbing the fence and sit on top of it, it will pain you. So imagine sitting on a fence mentally too, it hurts. So we got to be careful that we have chosen what side we are on and stay on the right side. So the foundation is important, which is the children knowing where they're from, knowing their foundation is important. They visit Nigeria. I know people might play all the stories, oh, it's not safe, is this, that, whatever it is now. We go to Nigeria very often. It's important they visit. Once they visit, when the boys went to Nigeria for Easter, they were saying they're going back again in December. I don't know who's paying, but they said they are going in December. But so when you look at all these things, you realize that how much this generation, if we deprive them from their roots, they will come back and they will tell you off later on when they grow up. Because it's amazing how much money now is being made in all these ancestral websites, people trying to work out where they're from. You know, when we went to Nigeria, went to visit one of my uncles who has a family tree. And, you know, I didn't even know that family tree existed, but he's got a comprehensive family tree for us all the way down to my generation. So my boys have not entered the tree yet. So we just add them onto the tree. I didn't even know he had it. And when they saw it, they were blown away. And it was like on a scroll, you open it all the way wide. You know, as in when I was watching them, how excited they were about it. Well, they were looking for their names on it. They were like, calm down, your names haven't entered yet. But, you know, but that shows how much it is. So going back to your key question you say now, how do we integrate both sides? Number one, when you live in this country, learn to integrate with people in this country now. When you have a strong identity, people know who you are. Like, I never doubt the fact I'm Nigerian. And anyone I meet, I tell them that. I don't hide it. It's in your face. I am, within the 1-2 minutes we're there now, I'll make sure you know I'm Nigerian. Because I know, do you know what? I don't know how to even put this now. Do you know what it means to be Nigerian? Oh, my Lord. You know, as in, just being Nigerian. I wake up every day and say to myself, imagine being from anywhere else. I can't even imagine it. Because there's no better place to be from. Sorry if you're not Nigerian here. So because that's so inbuilt in me. So integration now is, if you work in a particular place, talk to people, get to know them, have the conversations with them. You know, one thing that happens in the office most of the time, people are going out. Most Nigerians do not go anywhere with their office people. You know, they will say, oh, no, we don't. If I was talking to someone, no, I know the Englishman likes to go to the pub. It's okay. You can still go there and drink Coke. You don't have to drink the beer if you don't want to drink the beer or anything else. Go there, get Coca-Cola, just have a chat to them. Because to be honest, going to the pub is English tradition. So it's very hard to avoid that because it's about the only place that white people meet outside the office. There's hardly anywhere else. You see? So if you say, I'm never going to go, then you're never going to have a social interaction with them because it's about the only place they go to. So go and drink Coca-Cola there or drink Fanta or lemonade or whatever it is and just have the conversations with people. And it helps you get to know people better. So they have their own culture too. We have to learn to integrate into their own culture too. Our own is the foundation. Learn to sit on that foundation solidly. But whatever we do, learn to integrate. We tend to focus sometimes, but even churches sometimes we insist, we come from Nigeria, I will insist on going to only a black church. And you think to yourself, then where are you going to meet other white people to integrate with? I don't know. I know, yes, I know we have our different churches from Nigeria. We come here and some of them exist here, so you have to be with them. But once in a while, you might say, you know what? Let me go to places where there's plenty of white people. Let me hang around those kind of places. And you know what? I so much love doing that. I go to some areas in which In fact, the number of times I found myself in places, I walk in the restaurant anywhere else, I'm an only black person there. I'm always like, hey, this is a place I want to go. And I'm observing everything because I'm like, let me see anyone that will show me anything. And sometimes I'm expecting you to behave in a funny way, and then you go in and they're like, oh, this guy, it's not really what people say it is, So it's our opportunity to go in those kind of places and go and show ourselves. So we need to go out a lot more as black people. We need to integrate, I must say. And practical ways is if you're at work, if you're having social gatherings and stuff like that, follow them. As I say, you don't have to do what they're doing. You know where your background is. You always say, go with them, drink Coke, drink Fanta, drink lemonade, go that way too. If it's at school, there was a time we went for my son's, when he was in Moncton, they had a Christmas party at the end of the year. And we attended that Christmas party. It was only my wife, Edna, and myself were the only black people. The other black kids in the school were the only black people that attended the Christmas party. You can imagine. And we were saying to ourselves, what is this now? So in the whole room there, funny enough, the DJ was black actually, which is quite surprising, in Bath. And it was all the way in Bath. The DJ was black. And then only 3 black people in the whole room. Full of parents from a school Christmas party. Where are all the black parents that were there? Oh no, we don't go to those kind of places. We need to integrate a lot more. But our identity is important. Once you build that solid, then you're good.
Such an amazing answer. Thank you so much, sir. And I just want to build upon the point that you made. One of the things that integration actually gives us the opportunity to do is to change the narrative and to change the stereotype. You mentioned walking into establishments where you're the only black person and they're expecting you to act a certain way because of the narratives that are being pandered. And then they experience you and see that it's not the norm. It's not the ideal. Being upstanding members of diasporan communities, making the impact that we do and integrating, just like you have said, gives us the opportunity to change the narrative and to retell our stories from the position of truth. So thank you so much for sharing that. A wonderful, wonderful, delightful session. I know that the questions are piling up and I can't wait for us to shred them apart. But right up next, it is my utter and absolute delight to invite our very next speaker. Wow, she is going to be speaking on a topic that honestly brings it all together, focuses on some of the most important pillars, to use the words that Mr. Amos used, and some of the most important potentials that there are for us to really, really begin to harness the power of our heritage to become the heroes that we need. It is my absolute delight, my honor, my pleasure, my privilege to introduce and to welcome our convener, our leader, Dr. Alo Ohio. Dr. Alo is an esteemed educational consultant with deep expertise in British independent boarding schools. As the founder and lead consultant of Brains and Butter, she has guided high net worth African families in making transformative educational choices for their children, ensuring an enriching and well-rounded academic experience. Driven by her passion for advancing education within the African diaspora, Dr. Alo is dedicated to empowering families and enhancing their contributions to their home countries. A proud alumna of Queen's College in Lagos, Dr. Alo served as the president of her graduating class, where she leads a remarkable group of over 500 women, many of whom hold senior positions across the public and private sectors. Following her graduation, she pursued her BSc in Economics at the University of Hull, completed an MSc in Economics and Development Economics at the University of Nottingham, and went on to earn a PhD in Development Studies from the University of Sussex. Beyond her professional endeavors, Dr. Alo is also a development economist, educational entrepreneur, and active community leader. During the 2020 lockdown, she launched Sunday School with Dr. Alo on YouTube to provide spiritual and educational support for students at home, underscoring her commitment to holistic development. Her faith, family, and vibrant leadership drive her impact, whether in guiding educational futures, supporting young women's leadership, or nurturing her own families. Married to Mr. O, a tech strategist, Dr. Alo is also a devoted mother to 3 amazing boys, and she brings her energy, her faith, and her unsurmountable excellence to all aspects of her life. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me to put your virtual hands together as I have the privilege of welcoming for her talk Dr. Alo. Good afternoon, man. Such a delight, such a pleasure, such an absolute opportunity to have you on the call.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Miss Mark, for that amazing, amazing introduction. I am so grateful to you and to everyone on the call. Thank you for your time with us this afternoon now. I'm really excited about this topic. One of the things that I like to do when I start to speak about a topic is to make sure that we're all on the same page and that we're all, in line with the understanding of the words that we are talking about. So we have the word heritage. And I said, let us even discuss what does it mean? What does this word mean? What is our heritage? Heritage is linked to inheritance, and it's also linked to the word hair. Now, the difference between an inheritance or heritage is the fact that an inheritance is often thought of as a property, as a way. It has a tangible dimension to it, and it is passed down to a person or a group of people. So you inherit something. And it's not always property. It's not always assets. It's not always money. You inherit values as well. However, there is often this one-to-one dimension of what is inherited. Heritage, however, is what has been passed down through the years. So we're looking at a length of time. And that's why you have the word age, heritage. It's over the ages. It's values that have been passed on and on and on over a course of time. And one of the things I would like us to really banter on is what are these what is this heritage? What are these values that have been passed on to us as Africans over time? Why is that question important? It is important because there is also trauma. There is trauma even in our heritage. So I'm going to actually bring in some controversial, maybe not controversial, some not often spoken about dimensions to the African heritage, because trauma is passed on over time, right? So as part of our heritage, sadly, there has been some trauma. However, there has also been good, right? So it's balancing these things and understand, dealing and healing from the trauma in our heritage, such that the true essence of identity and who we are as a people emerges beautifully. That's heritage. Now let's talk about heroes. And the way I thought about this is our heritage is where we're coming from. Our heroes is that where we're going to, as it were. Now, who is a hero? A hero is someone who is celebrated for their outstanding accomplishments, for their courage, their bravery. And when you talk about bravery, it means that there was some opposition or some challenge or some constraint that a hero had to overcome, had to be courageous enough to overcome. In fact, let me tell you an example that happened yesterday. We've been having an issue with our car, and we've taken the car to the what's it called, the it's not showroom, the owners. I don't want to say the name of the car that I drive, right? We've been taking our car to these people. So these are we're not taking it to a mechanic, we're taking it to the owners of the car. So say, for example, we drive maybe an Audi. We've been taking it to Audi. That's not what we drive, by the way. We've been taking it to Audi themselves. And every time they give us the car back, the issue remains. So yesterday, we raised an emergency about the car, and they said to us to bring it to them on Friday. So we then asked them, would you be giving us a replacement car? Because we would need a replacement car if we're giving you this car, so we don't have to pay for taxes and just all the hassle that would come with that. And they said to us, no, they can't give us a courtesy car. And I just, the reply I sent them, I said, you've got to be kidding. I've got 3 children. I need this replacement car. To cut a long story short, we went back and forth, and I was resolute that this replacement car, you are going to find it, because I've been having this issue, and we've been dealing with this issue, right? Enough is enough. To cut a long story short, we went from him saying to us, the service manager saying they can't get a replacement car, to saying, okay, they've been able to find a replacement car for us. I'm telling that story to just highlight and showcase the importance of courage and bravery. As far as I'm concerned, my husband and I were heroes in this car situation yesterday. So a hero is someone who has shown bravery, has shown courage against all odds, and is being celebrated for their achievements as a result of the bravery that they have shown. A hero is also someone that is celebrated for their noble qualities. And I know on this call, everyone here is a hero. So I'm a visual person. So I'm going to be sharing my screen so that together we can just visualize. A lot of what I would be speaking to, you won't see on the screen, but it would give you a form of a visual anchor, as it were. Well, maybe for people who are like me, who like to see something, this should hopefully help. So I've given the context in terms of explaining heritage. And let me quickly go back to explaining the connection between inheritance and heritage, and the age dimension of heritage being what has been passed on over the years. And as I said that, I also mentioned the fact that there's trauma. There is trauma in our heritage, and we need to heal from that trauma. We'll speak to that shortly. So I've explained heritage, I've explained heroes, and my job today is to talk about the role of communities. Communities actually bridge the gap, as it were, between where we are coming from and where it is we are going to. So that's my job today. Now, today is essentially a buffet. We've heard from Amos, we've heard from Victor, and now you're hearing from Alo. Okay, so I don't want you to purge because there's so much that has been shared, and I will be sharing as well. So I want to sort of make it compact and tidy for you, for us to think about and banter on shortly. So I'll be speaking to 3 areas. The first is about storytelling. The second is about the family unit. And the final bit will be about us bridging the gap. So let's talk about storytelling. Oh my goodness. I remember growing up and watching Tales by Moonlight. And at this point, please just use your emoji and give me hands up. If you ever watched Tales by Moonlight, can you please put your emoji hands up? Let me see. How many? Let me see those who were born in a certain time. Yeah, so if you watch Tales by Moonlight, is it just 3 of us that watch Tales by Moonlight? Okay, I'm seeing more hands up. Yes, I'm seeing more hands up. Amazing. Yes. So we remember Tales by Moonlight. Oh, I would literally look forward to sitting down and listening and enjoying. I could even sing the opening song to Tales by Moonlight. Thank you so much for your hands, and for everyone that has put their hands up. And I know that we are a lot. Do we know what was happening as a result of Tales by Moonlight? Heritage, values were being passed on. I particularly love the stories of, why does the tortoise have a crooked back? Why does the lizard always nod his head like this? All sorts of stories. And I was fortunate enough to have my grandmother tell me her own version of Tales by Moonlight. So we would sit outside. Thankfully, sometimes there's no electricity, and it was okay. There's the light of the moonlight to brighten up the night sky, and we'll be there sat outside our home on a bench, and my grandmother would just roll out tales, and I'll be like, what is this? But I would enjoy it. Like, these are funny things about animals and people and stories, but wisdom was being passed on through those stories. Have we lost the art of storytelling? I pray not, and I hope not. But as I reflected, I realized that, wow. So I tell my stories to my children, I tell my stories to people, but I liked how our stories were told through things like Tales by Moonlight. And I think that we should revisit things like this. At Brains and Butter, it's something we're looking at within our expression through Brains and Buttercups to tell these stories. And there are, thankfully, people who are doing this on YouTube who tell stories. And let them know the African version of why the back of the tortoise is crooked. Let them know the African version. Why is this important? Do you know that the Greeks have made a fortune telling their stories? Greek mythology, I mean, there's no difference between Thor and Shango, really, right? Thor is the god of, that's Shango, but Thor is literally a Hollywood blockbuster. They have told their story, right? We need to tell our stories, and it's happening, and we need to promote it some more. There's an economic dimension of storytelling because the media dimension of it, these things are big budget, right? But the first point I really wanted to make in this aspect of storytelling is for us to really revisit telling our African stories. There's a joy, there's a novelty to it that needs to be preserved. And I pray we don't lose it over the ages. Now let's talk about representation as we tell our stories. Mr. Victor shared how he has been to many places where his family or he himself is the only black, they're the only black families, or he's the only black person. We definitely have an issue of representation. Now, I cringe when I find myself use the word black because I don't like that word actually, because it speaks to color, not culture. I'd rather you call me an African than call me a black woman. Yes, I actually prefer that, but I understand the use of the word, but it's color, it's not my culture. Many years ago, I made the mistake of describing someone as half caste, and I was corrected, and I remember that correction, and I valued it because the lady said to me, what is half? Are you suggesting she's half this, half of that? No. And apparently, some of them don't even like to be described as the people who we call half caste do not like to be described as half of a caste, right? So it's the same thing with this whole idea of black. It's color, it's not my culture. An American will say, I'm an American. I'm British. I'm an Indian. I'm Asian. So what is this black? I'm an African. That is who I am. Now, coming back to the issue of representation, many of us in the diaspora will have found ourselves in places and spaces where we were the only Black African families. And I would say to my children when they're with us in those spaces that whatever it is you are doing in this space, you are telling a story. If you arrive late, you are telling a story. If you arrive on time, you are telling a story. How you conduct yourself, how you dress, you are telling a story. Speaking of how you dress, for some reason, some Africans, we like designers. I don't know whether we get a sense of identity from designers. And so you will see people. I saw someone at the airport the other day, and I just thought, oh, this is so wrong. The jacket was designer, the trousers even being designer. And I'm like, so is this person identifying as this designer? And in the person's mind, suitcase, everything. In the person's mind, I have arrived. This is who I am. This is my identity. And I'm like, this is so wrong. Meanwhile, there are billionaires in that airport who will just wear a simple t-shirt and jeans. And I'm like, oh my goodness, there are so many cultural differences here. Again, there's trauma and how we understand identity. So when we are in places where, representation is an issue, we have a story to tell. And you know, Victor shared the story of a family who didn't quite tell a good story. And sadly, we get affected by that, whether we like it or not. So we have a job to tell our stories in places where we are not exactly represented. But to be fair, I often ask myself, why is representation an issue in this space? What have my people missed out on that we are not represented here? Why aren't we in these spaces? We can banter on that. Now, recognition. Recognition is perhaps, for me, the easiest actionable points in this whole conversation about storytelling. And it's something we are going to take very seriously at Brains and Banter, where we need to recognize and celebrate our own heroes. Recognition is big. I find that the Americans and other societies do this so well. They recognize their own, they sell their stories, they celebrate their own. We were on a trip recently, and a mother was talking to me about her son. And she said, oh, one of the things I like about him is how he has his head on his shoulders. And I'm like, hang on, this is a mother talking about her son. But she was just full of his praises, recognizing his achievements. And I thought, this is beautiful. We need to recognize each other. We need to celebrate one another. Okay, so that's enough on storytelling. Now let's talk about the family unit. And Amos did a fantastic job in telling his story and the role of family. And having Victor and Amos on this call really speaks to the power of family. Family coming together, family preserving the Tafa heritage, preserving their heritage. You know, the family forms the cornerstone of identity for all of us. Our nature, our nurture, even our heritage was formed within our family unit. This is why parenting is such a big deal. And speaking about recognition, we have a woman on this call, Coach Ekwase Egbe, who is a transformational child governance coach. I'm sure she can better introduce herself. And I want to recognize her and the work that she does, right, in helping our children preserve their spiritual heritage, their African heritage, and not let these things get lost. And also addressing areas where there has been trauma. So our identity is formed within our families. That's the cornerstone, because you know there's identity as it is informed by heritage, because your heritage to a large extent plays a part in how you understand who you are, what defines you, what are your own core values, what is your own heritage that you will be passing on to your children. So parenting is a big part of this, because it is the family unit that is where traditions are passed on, how we greet, how we relate with elders. So for example, you see this thing of elders in the diaspora. It's an interesting one where you can call a 75-year-old person by their first name. And I get it. I understand it, right? But as Africans, we show respect. So it's how do we retain that respect, but at the same time understand the culture of the places we're in. So for example, the use of the word sir, we have to be careful with it, because there are colonial undertones when you say sir. There's a sir, right? So there are things happening there that we need to be aware of. The family is also where emotional resilience is built as people navigate their heritage within with other people who have a different heritage and different set of ideals. It's where intergenerational knowledge sharing takes place. We are learning from our children, and they are learning from us as well. And grandparents, extended family networks, other communities are a part of this intergenerational knowledge sharing. So the family really is the number one unit. It is where our heritage is understood, and it is where it is maintained. Now, finally, I would be speaking to communities. The very word community actually means a common unity. You need to find groups and spaces that champion values that you are in tandem with in terms of the cause and what it is they're about. If you don't have one already, I'm sure you do, but please consider adding Brains and Banter as one of your communities. And in case you're wondering, what are we about? We are about intellectual conversations that matter, right? That is at the heart of Brains and Banter. We are also about showcasing African intellectuals in the diaspora. So people, heroes basically, our African heroes in the diaspora, our intellectual heroes in particular, people studying their doctoral degrees or working as postdoctoral researchers, people contributing to the intellectual landscape of African conversations. That is who and we are, Brains and Banter, and that is what we are about. So you need to find places of common unity, because that is what will give you a sense of anchoring, a sense of belonging. It helps to bridge the gap in this conversation about heritage and heroes. Please do not be isolated, particularly if you live in the diaspora. In fact, wherever you live, home or abroad, being a part of a community, it could be your work community, it could be your faith community, even your school. Schools are such a big part of your community. Myself and Victor are both alumni of King's College, Queen's College. Oh my goodness, we can't keep quiet about it. You can't shut us up on that. We will let you know. I would let you know I'm a Queen's College old girl because it's such a part of who I am, and I am so proud actually of being a Queen's College old girl. And Victor will tell you the same thing about being a KCOB. It is our heritage as people. So schools are also community places that inform who we are as a people. So it is important that we find communities that we belong to, as this will help us preserve our heritage, identify areas where there have been trauma, and help us become the heroes that we are definitely destined to be. So there's a lot to still talk about, but I would like to pause here. I've heard my own voice for way too long, so I'm going to hand it back over to Miss Mark as we're about to banter.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alo. You say you've been talking for so long and you love to hear the sound of you've been hearing the sound of your voice for so long. But I can assure you, I have lost track of time, because just listening to you speaking and elaborating, hearing the passion, it's so inspiring, and it's such a beautiful point of relativity. So thank you so much for sharing that. When you were speaking, one of the things that really, really, really stood out to me is how important it is not to call ourselves the way the media calls us. You mentioned that you don't like to be addressed as a Black woman because Black is a color and not a culture. And I think that that really speaks to not just staying connected to or being aware of our heritage, our inheritance over the age, as it were, but being proud of it, being conscious enough of the benefits and the leverage it gives us to be proud of it. So thank you so much for Dr. Alo for that. And thank you so much for recognizing a member of our community. One of the things that we really take really important here at Brains and Butter is shining a spotlight on our community members that are doing amazing things. And so I just want to say again, thank you so much to everybody that's on this call for staying. We are going into what I know is the icing on today's cake. We are going into the banter section. But before we get to this point, I would like to prompt Ms. Adetola, if she is on this call, to speak to one of the ways that the Brains and Banter community is poised to make direct impact. Brains and Banter is a community that doesn't just exist for intellectual conversations. And while that is the bedrock of who we are also walking the talk in different ways. Ms. Adetola, would you just give me verbal confirmation that you're ready? Ah, there she
Yes,
is.
I'm on
So
the
good to
call with
have you.
you.
Good morning. Interestingly, Ms. Adetola is also
Mhm.
a member, a vibrant and active member of the Brains and Banter community. And she's just going to be walking us through one of the ways that Brains and Banter makes it a point of duty to walk our African community members and members of our African communities through an educational path to getting them where they need to be. So I'll just like to hand over now to Ms. Adetola for her section. Ms. Adetola, are you ready?
Yes, I am. I just want to confirm if I'm not frozen from here because I can see that my network is.
No, you're not. I can hear you loud and clear. You look
Thank
so
you
good this
so
morning.
much.
Thank you for joining us on the call.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for that introduction, Ms. Mark. Thank you so much, Mr. Victor Taffa and Mr. Amos. And I would like to say thank you to Dr. Alu for this timely conversation. I would say it's actually timely and timeless. Thank you so much. So I would just quickly go to, because I have 5 minutes, so I'm thrilled to have this opportunity to talk to you about how Brains and Banter can simplify the process of postgraduate admissions. As most of you know, Brains and Banter is a sister company to Brains and Butter. So if you been in touch with us, just know how we do what we do at Brains and Butter. It's just an expression of the same thing. You will be getting the same thing at Brains and Banter. So Brains and Banter is an educational consultancy. We specialize in postgraduate placement in the UK. And in fact, recently I can say around the world. So if you're looking at US or Canada, we also handle that. And all we are about, I must say, is we're just committed in shaping the future of ambitious individuals. So whether you're pursuing further education to deepen your expertise or pivot your career, Brains and Butter is here for you. And this is some of the things we do at Brains and Butter. Unlike any other consultancy firm, we are experts in PhD applications, and you know how tedious that can be. But we handle it with, it's just so much that probably I would say it comes from the fact that we have our lead consultant. You know, she's a doctor, she has a doctorate degree, so that makes it very easier for us when we're handling this process for you. And we also do undergraduate and master's applications as well. Now, we don't just stop at that. We also do what we call the post-admission service. Yes, because we want you to, be able to journey seamlessly while you find yourself in any part of the world. And on to the next slide, Ms. Mark. So I will just run through how we support. If that's the next slide, I'll just run through how we support. So one of the ways we do this is through personalized. Yes, so we have different challenges. We understand that choosing the right course can actually be one of the major challenges. We also understand the complex of application requirements. We also know that meeting deadlines can also be one of it. And personal statements. Oh, wow. Sometimes we read some personal statements. This is one thing Dr. Alo does, very well. And, she just goes through that personal statement and say, this is not who you are. And it just, ties into this conversation, identifying, being able to identify who you are, write it and craft it very well in a personal statement where the school cannot but just give you that offer. This is a part of the things we also do. And then we also do what we call preparation for the entrance exams and also interviews. Now, here are the several ways that we do this. We do this through personalized approach. So we take time to understand what you want, and then we work closely with you just to find that best fit university, that one that aligns, with your ambition. And the second thing we do is expert guidance. So from your application, like I said, to strategies to crafting a compelling personal statement, we will do just that for you. And then there's also the end-to-end support that we do. So from the moment you decide to apply, we will always provide you valuable advice, for the entrance exams, scholarships, interview preparation, and ensuring that your application is very competitive. The fourth thing that we do is we're dedicated to our outcomes. So, like I said, brains and butter will not just leave you, halfway through. We will ensure that we get you a best academic environment to your personal and professional growth. And lastly is the post-admission service. So we understand that beyond admission, there's also need for us to do what we call career planning and guidance on your internships and job placements. So we will help you in doing that as well. My colleagues would be in the chat box putting how we can act, the next steps, like how you can get in touch with us. I would close out by saying that if you believe that a postgraduate journey should be something you're looking out for, or you have a family member, a friend that needs to actually have a certificate in a place like the UK, please reach out to us, get in touch with us, and we will help you in doing that. We would love to partner with you and make it a success story for you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Detola. That was such a straightforward and straight to the point one. Thank you so much for sharing. Just want to reiterate, it has been our pleasure and our delight over the years to have placed many of our community members in some of the best schools across the world for their postgraduate studies. So if that's something you're interested in, please click any of the links in the chat room. Our team is geared up and ready to get started with you. All right, it's time to get back to the banter session. I know that there are people in the chat room that will say, let's get to it. It's time to banter. Let's get to it. Well, I'm happy to let you know that we are at that point of the conversation. I would like to encourage you, if you are on the call, please feel free to turn on your camera. We're going to be having an interactive session right now. We're going to be dissecting some of the things that we have discussed today. And to help me do this, it is my absolute pleasure and delight to introduce Mr. Abimbola Afwakwe. Mr. Abimbola, are you on the call with me? Would you just say hello to me very quickly? Mr. Abimbola, if you're on the call, would you just say hi? All right, I believe that Mr. Abimbola will be joining us soon. But to get us started, I'm going to just lead us off. I'm going to start from something that Dr. Alu said. Dr. Alu said when she was speaking, and I took a note of it, that she would like us to banter about something, and I want us to start from there. I think this one, I'm actually going to pose this question to Mr. Amos, actually, because I would like to hear his take on this. Dr. Alu said about looking into why our people are so misrepresented. She said, and the train of thought or the line of thought that I talk about, or that I thought about is, what is it that we're doing? Are we subconsciously doing something as a people, as a culture, as Africans in diaspora? You know, one of the things that I have observed in consuming the media, Dr. Alu mentioned Tales by Moonlight. I was born at the end of the Tales by Moonlight generation. So I also had the privilege of hearing such stories and watching them on TV. One of the things that the generations before us did so well was to tell our own stories by ourselves. You know, when you say there is no difference between Thor and Shongo, I actually thought about it. I actually paused and I said, I consume a lot of superhero content. What is really the difference between Aquaman and Oya, right? What's the difference between waterbenders and Oya? What's the difference? It's storytelling, like you said. Our for lack of a better word, competitors, right? Cultural competitors have invested in telling their own stories. Could that be the missing link in why we are so seemingly misrepresented? Could that be the missing link in why it seems like when there is a single bad egg, the media paints that as collective errors or collective failing? Could that be it? Mr. Amos, if you're on the call, I'd love to hear your take on this.
So, no, that's a very good point as far as representation. Now, I come from more of the academic setting, so I'm not an expert with superheroes. Even though I grew up with Voltron, and so I know my, background as far as that goes. But yes, very interesting observation there. Let me say it in a different context for a second. As I've studied a lot on the history of math and science, right? I don't see a lot of representation maybe in the historical past, quote unquote, But what I'm realizing is that, again, this is the era. There's a window of opportunity. It's almost like, I remember in boarding school, which, by the way, I was actually going to say that, let me pull it up here. King's College and Queen's College are represented, but Ijanikin is represented here, FGC Lagos. So I just wanted to say the rivalry between Ijaniki and Queen's College. I just want to say we are still in the ring. Anyways, I bring this up to say, when I think about the world today, I think of boarding school and you're trying to go into dining hall to get food, and they open the gate and people just rush, right? When that gate is open, there's a window of opportunity. Now, I was one of the cool kids, so I didn't rush. I used to wait in the back. But the reality is that everybody, Nigerians and everybody on the call, but I want to say especially Nigerians, because I know that culture quite well, we have a window of opportunity now. There was a time where I could not be given certain opportunities, and those times are not today. I have the opportunities and I'm going to take them, right? And I was in England, last month or 2 months ago, and I was encouraged by the work again of William Wilberforce and what he did in ending that slave trade, which of course came with, trauma. But the good news is there's a new era. This is our opportunity to flourish and shine. So there is less representation in certain fields, but that can change, and that needs to change as soon as possible. So one of the things I was going to mention just quickly too, before I hand it back, is that I look at the again, the scientific revolution of the 1500s. That's one of the studies I do quite often, and I see the atmosphere that created Newton and all these guys, right? That atmosphere is right before us right now, and what it takes is excellence in your studies and a willingness to think outside the box. And literally everyone in diaspora, let's be instilling in our children the fact that they should not put those limits, those ceilings that people put. And let's encourage them to go above and beyond. This is the chance. And the reality is that, this world has its challenges. We will not everybody will always have opportunities in every generation, so to speak. But this generation right now, this is our chance, and let's increase representation, especially in the STEM fields, especially in science and mathematics. Let's see Nobel laureates from Africa. I mean, in math, in the sciences, we've only had maybe one Nobel laureate from Africa in chemistry or physics, only one. And it's like, no, that needs to change, and that can change, I believe, that representation. So anyways, that's where I'm at. I think that I agree with you. There's definitely a lack of that representation, but I also see the gate. The gate has opened, and now we need to run and not look back.
Absolutely. And, just like cool kids that you were, we're going to run. We're going to run through in an orderly fashion. Thank you so much for sharing that. All right. I'm going to take one more question before I hand back to Mr. Abimbola. Mr. Abimbola, can I confirm that you're on the call with me now?
Yes, I am.
Amazing. So good to have you here. I'm just going to take one more question just to build on that point, and I'm going to ask Dr. Alo to please weigh in on this one. There's a question in the chat room that says, how can diasporan communities leverage digital technologies to preserve and promote their cultural heritage in the face of globalization? Dr. Alo, would you like to chime in on this?
Wow, definitely. The funny thing, I think we are already doing that so well, right? But there's still a lot to be said for innovation. There's a lot to be said for the research skill sets as well, because the thing about leveraging on any opportunity on an open window is it is a thing of critical mass, right? One of the things we've had is we have a lot of us doing so many amazing things in silos, as it were. But I see that now there's a lot of collaboration taking place, a lot of organizations, just like Brains and Banter, right? The other day I was looking at We Elevate Africa, that the Olu of Warri and his beautiful wife did such a great job in putting that together. They have an app that they put. I looked at the app and I was like, yes, this is it. This is a fantastic app. So we're beginning to leverage on these technologies. However, if we're in a race, our competitors have gone quite far ahead. So we have mileage. We have some mileage to cover, but we've done that with food. Jollof rice, for example, is such a fantastic. What would I call jollof rice? Jollof rice is It's an institution.
It's a fantastic export.
Fantastic, precisely. It is such a fantastic export. Our music as well, but there's a lot more sectors that we need to occupy, that our children and we ourselves need to really be represented in, and we can definitely use digital technologies to showcase and tell our stories. Okay, so I think Mr. Bimbola, do you want to take it up from there?
All right,
Yeah.
I'll take it up from there. Thank
Okay.
you so much, Mar. Thank you so much, Mr. Victor. Thank you so much. That was power packed. Thank you so much, Mr. Amos. You know, I was looking forward to today, and I knew that value, like I said initially, value was going to be dropped on the table. And one of the things that you know, makes us stand out in Brains and Banter, you know, as a family, is that we're very particular about keywords, and certain keywords, you know, were dropped today. And I hope that, you know, that would be the essence of having to understand how it is to be part of a heritage, part of a system, part of something that, you know, means more than just life, you know, an existence that needs to live for a very long time, if forever, if possible, you know, and at the same time having to be heroes. And I would just employ that as we take home the essence of what this whole conversation is about, that we are able to have these same keywords impacted in our daily struggle, our daily lives, with our kids, with our friends and families, especially those in the diaspora. You know, because sometimes we tend to forget these things. You know, life is good here. You know, we're having interactions with new people, new friends, let's use the word colors, you know, but at the same time, we have an essence, we have an aura, we're coming from something beautiful, you know, and it's a matter of time how we downplay these things can be forgotten. And it looks like, oh, everybody is on this area, everybody's on this level, forgetting that there is a beautiful thing called Africa, called home, you know, that we all have. So I have some questions that we have put together that I would like to ask. And one of the first questions I would like to ask, the first question I would like to ask is, what are the ethical considerations of engaging in diaspora philanthropy and development work? So I'll put that question to Mr. Victor, and let's hear from you, sir.
Yeah, I think for me, I think it's important because so as soon as I moved back here, I think the key thing for me was, as soon as I moved back to UK, the key thing for me, I was here to develop myself and to feed back to Nigeria. So I might not want to use the word philanthropy because it sort of sounds somehow anyway, but I think I know why I tend to dodge that word particularly. But I think because when you use the word philanthropy, everyone thinks you have to be a multimillionaire before you can contribute in any way. But the reality is, everybody can contribute in one way or another. Even not without money, even just your time. Because the fact that we live out here, one thing that's very important for us is the fact that you're in the world here. Even when you visit Nigeria, the normal conversations you have with people to inspire them is different. Because it's easier to feed into somewhere when you're outside it. Because a Nigerian cannot see beyond the problems that everyone is going through at the moment. You know, the price of fuel, the price of food. You know, it's difficult to see beyond that. But when you try and tell them, look, there's another life, there's another possibility. If you try and tell someone that it's possible to have power supply nonstop, the person will feel, I've never seen that before, it's not possible. But the fact that you're out there, if you tell someone it's possible to go from London to Manchester, the motorway without a pothole, the person will think, how possible is that? You know? So when you're outside the environment, it's a lot easier for you to be able to feed the information back to people. So for me, I think when you look at that, trying to build things and trying to contribute back to society there, I think I see it as something that we don't have to. It's good to run it with being organized. But I think for what's very important to us is we should stop waiting till we have built an organization, or we just find ways in which you could do things in smaller ways to actually contribute back to either Nigeria or even here. And even here in the UK, I think, as I said earlier, sometimes we look at it as we have to have an organization to do anything here too. But I think the simple things we can do as parents, how we bring the children up. Even I love what Dr. Alo said. You know, what you talk about representation, you know, is a mouthful. Think about representation. You know, when you go into somewhere, the mark you leave there, the impact you leave when you walk into a place and you leave. What do people think about Africans after you have left? Will they say to themselves, that guy was African and he was so well behaved? Or will they say, look at how they behave? You know, so we have a lot to do. And I believe it's small wins that create big victories. So the small way you can contribute, even back in Nigeria, even here, the way you can contribute by representation. If you're given work in an office, let it be a case whereby the next black man that comes to our office, they will appreciate them, not thinking, oh, the last one we had was terrible, we don't want to have another one again. You know, so let's always make sure that we're building, you know, and we're leaving that inheritance, which I love the definition of heritage that Dr. Allo gave, you know, having that inheritance wherever we go and whichever way we leave it.
All right, awesome. So I'll let my next questions to go to Mr. Amos. So Mr. Amos, this question goes to you. How do diasporic communities contribute to economic development and innovations?
Would that be in Nigeria or in general?
In general.
I think there was, you know, I saw a similar or part of a similar question earlier on, and the question of just how, even how to find your place in another society, like even getting connected. And I think with the diasporic communities, the first step is having a community. And I think that's Brains and Banter has provided a great opportunity here. I haven't had an opportunity to just reflect and dissect things like I have today in a long time. And I'm very pleased and grateful for this opportunity. So the first step is finding these pockets that we need to establish, and then having an agenda that is geared towards problem solving. Because when Nigerians gather together, again, we can talk for 7 hours about certain problems and challenges, but what are the solutions that we can come up with? And so the way I think about it is, if we bring our skill sets, like Nehemiah, I think of Nehemiah in the Bible where they were rebuilding and they brought their skill sets. If we bring our skill sets and we think about mentorship, especially, that is one way I think we can really help, is by mentoring young people using our different skill sets that we have. So I think that innovation and advancement can happen with diasporic communities as we bring our skill sets together and as we encourage mentorships with students who are maybe in secondary school, for example. I remember when I was in Ejanikin and our old students would come and you just felt like the world was, I mean, like it just opened your eyes to another dimension. Like it gave you a lot of hope because you're seeing these people now that have gone on and, you know, are working in different, industries in medicine, engineering, and so on and so forth. So I think that mentorships are huge. Of course, connecting back with our old school, old student associations. But then even I think of one of the biggest ones that I think about often is gap year programs for Nigerian students who are done with secondary school, but they're not yet ready to start university. And how can we help them to basically use that time? As someone said, very good. Yeah, let's help them use that time to discover their passions, their callings, let's really connect them to those mentorship circles, but use that gap year or that season after JAMB and WAEC and use those people as agents of change in society, because they have a lot of free time. And then some people in diaspora have a lot of experience. So really connecting those two people together, I think, is a huge part of bringing innovation and change. The last quick thing I was going to say is that I looked at the statistic even now, but Nigerian Americans in the US are some of the most educated people in the whole country, Nigerian Americans specifically. And the question becomes, how can that be leveraged to bring support and innovation to people in Nigeria who are looking for opportunities to shine? And then how could the Nigerian Americans in America or in the UK collaborate to advance, different goals in society using the heritage and the things that they've inherited, So anyways, I'm excited to carry that conversation forward at some point. How can we be mentors and support people that want to innovate and change things in Nigeria or outside the country?
Thank you so much. That's such an expansive answer. One of my favorite things about hearing you respond to questions is that the teacher in you really shines through. And it really, really speaks to what you said about mentorship and connecting that back to our communities. So thank you so much for that answer. And just to put it out there, Mr. Amos is a fantastic tutor and teacher, and is actually the founder of the Learning Institute for Excellence. So when he speaks to mentorship and the importance of having mentors and examples, he's actually talking from a place of experience. So thank you so much for sharing that. Right now, we're going to go into audience engagement because we really want to hear from our audience. Coach Ekwase, I'm prompted that you wanted to share something with us. Hello, Mom. It's so good to see you today. How are you doing today?
I'm blessed. Thank you. Good morning. Good afternoon.
Delighted. Good afternoon, ma'am. Thank you so much. I would love to hear your take on our conversation today. And I would like to encourage anybody else on the call. We're in the banter section now. If you would like to contribute to this conversation, please turn on your camera, raise up your hand, and we are going to invite you to the floor. Coach Ekwase, I'm always delighted to hear your perspective. Please go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Lady Ma, and our very own Dr. Allo. She rocks. To the amazing men that have spoken, you all are very, very knowledgeable, and you are some of the assets the world needs. Interesting conversation, and thank you so much, Dr. Allo, for bringing in, stating about the parenting for what I do with my team. And the last man talked about the gentleman from, in fact, he did not even allow us to hear word, Federal Government College, Janike, Federal Government Girls College, Benin City represented. He talked about the old students. He talked about innovation and advancement and bringing the change, bringing the mentorship between those in gap year and those, abroad, outside Nigeria. He talked about the old students coming to inspire the children currently in the schools, like in those days where the old students came to his school, right? He gives them hope and all that. We do that. Now, coming to the conversation, heritage, hero. Do you know who you are? Do you know why you are? Do you know whose you are? Do you know what you are? Do you know where you are? Your identity, self-discovery, self-awareness. That makes color irrelevant. Absolutely. You've got to be comfortable in your skin. You've got to be audacious. Like Dr. Allo said, you've got to be courageous. Dare to stand out. Do you know the reason you are being? Do you know the challenges you've been created to be the solution to? When you come through, what will people say? Dare not only to stand out, but to be outstanding in everything you do. I am essential, exceptional, Ekwase. I yield the mic. Thank you for the opportunity.
Every time I hear you speak, I take a quote. Every time without fail. Learn not only to stand out, but to be outstanding in whatever you do. Thank you so much for your contribution. Wow. My favorite thing about this community is the value of its members. And this has been such a truly brilliant time of conversation. Permit me to say a big, massive thank you to every single person on this call that has contributed. A round of applause. I thank you so much, Coach Ekwase. I have to give a round of applause to every single person that has stayed on this call. It's been an absolute delight and privilege. But before we round up, I would like to invite our founder, our convener, and our first lady of Brains and Banter to just give us, yes, a round of applause, Coach Ekwase. I love it. To just give us a quick roundup, closing remarks before we are out of here. Dr. Aloma, I always, with pride and pleasure, yield the mic.
Wow, thank you so much. And honestly, thank you so much, Coach Ekwase. Coach Ekwase spoke to something that I was itching to say. And it's about our pride, and not pride in a negative sense, but shall I say confidence in who we are as a people and our identity. Because I see that sometimes that's where there's an issue, where as a people we don't appreciate our heritage enough or value it enough. And when we find ourselves in global spaces, we feel less of who we are. I've seen it time and time again, and I'm like, why is there this sense of feeling less, of feeling as though what we have to offer is not good enough? We shouldn't feel that way anymore, because when you're proud of your heritage and of who you are, your values, you will champion it. You will confidently champion the cause of your people. I know that sometimes as a people we may not have some people may not have represented our African heritage in the best light, but let's still let's still be the positive ones, showing the good, showcasing the good. Every society has their bad eggs, every society. So why should we let the bad side overshadow the good? We have so much good to offer, and we really should be confident in our heritage and herald that heritage with all joy and gladness. And speaking to the issue of vision, where do we want to go to as a people? I truly believe that there's an African renaissance happening right now. So I was excited when Amos talked about a window. When I was doing my research as a PhD student, we had very little research materials from African literati, as it were. And that actually bothered me. So when I went to Nigeria, I went to NISA. NISA is the Nigerian Institute of Social and Economic Research. It is based in Ibadan. And I saw a lot of materials, and I'm like, why aren't these materials on the global stage? And speaking to what we said about digital technologies, right? A lot of them were printed, and they weren't at the stage at the time where somebody had made these materials, electronic materials. But if you see some of these printed materials, good, solid research work that had been done, but it was all paper work. It hadn't been put into electronic formats such that there can be an e-library where researchers from all over the world. But now we have our writers accessing journals, and you can find some of their research work online. But there's a lot more. There's a lot that the African mind has to contribute, and we need to really have a vision of where it is that we want to go to make the most of this African Renaissance and redefine our heritage, as it were, so that our children have a better landscape to come and occupy. So that's it from me. I don't know if others have any last words, or if we have people who want to quickly contribute and ask a question.
Thank you so much, Dr. So grateful to hear you speak. Before we move on to the next section, permit me to just interject. Mr. Amos, I can see your hand. I will be delighted to wrap up with you. I can't wait to hear that thought. Please hold on to it like this, because you're going to... Beginning of this conversation, one of the things that has been echoed throughout this conversation is that brains and banter, brains and butter, and Dr. Alo are very particular about preparing a platform for the... Here at Brains and Banter, we are not just talking the talk, we are walking the walk. And one of the ways that we're doing that very, very soon is with our Buttercups Virtual School. We have an edition called the Half-Term Edition, and we're going to be digging into rules and roots. At Brains and Banter, again, we're not just talking the talk. Some of the things, some of the concepts, some of the very important lessons that we're picking away from this, we're going to distill those to our children. So I would like to encourage everyone on the call. This is an opportunity for you to systematically incorporate some of the best parts of our heritage into our children. If we are going to raise the next generation of African leaders, it must begin with us. check the chat room for the links, and we look forward to seeing your cubs in class. All right, Mr. Amos, that thought that you were holding right there, it's time to unleash it on us. I'd love to hear from you, sir.
Yes, no problem. And I will keep it straight to the point. I just wanted to give a resource or something for people to think about if they want to dive deeper into any of these things. Again, we live in a fallen world, and different people have their stories, and even being here in America, I've met people that have shared their stories of challenges. And if you haven't studied the history of Europe, even the Scottish people, for example, they actually suffered a lot. And but that's another day story. The reason why I bring it up, though, is that I have learned that, number one, you have to acknowledge where there's trauma, right? Boarding school is cool. I love boarding school. But boarding school itself has trauma that you have to even undo, right? And so even today, I'm working through some of those. Like, there's some things that I've had to think through and realize, there's no senior that is trying to look for me and cause trouble, that kind of mindset. You have to be careful what you bring onto the, your current state. But the reason why I put up my hand is, number one, is recognizing, yes, there are challenges that you have to overcome. But number two, there are some resources, there's some books, there are some authors that have done a very good job talking about cultures and, people in diaspora and adjusting. And one of them I found very encouraging is a man named Thomas Sowell. Thomas Sowell, S-O-W-E-L-L. S-O-W-E-L-L. He's one of the people that discovered that Nigerian Americans actually, in many industries, out-earn white Americans. He actually discovered this, and he's looking, and he's studied many different cultures and all that, and he makes it clear that your culture, as Dr. Alo said, it's not just that someone is Black, it's like your culture, right? What's your cultural heritage? And so it's just something for us to remember. We have resources like Thomas Sowell. I call him like my my grandfather, that my American grandfather, because he's 94 now, and he has a lot of insights for especially young Black men. So lastly, I will say this, that especially for the young Black men, they need to make sure that they hold the ground and move forward with the right processes, because unfortunately, we see a lot of trouble sometimes that comes from, people being, stereotypes that are created because there's a population that has caused certain things that happens to be quote unquote Black, right? And so there are actual concerns. And so we really have to encourage our young men to apply themselves to their studies, to remember their heritage, to remember whose they are, yeah, to remember, that they've been created for a purpose. And so, anyways, just some thoughts there. Thomas Sowell is a great resource, and really encouraging our young men, especially, to please create a legacy in their newfound lands while they remember where they come from.
Thank you so much, Mr. Amos. Brilliant supposition as always. And I will yield to Mr. Victor now for your final thoughts.
Yeah, I think thank you so much again for everyone that's been here right up to this point. I have learned so much. I always love these conversations because, as I say, it's got brains and banter. So it's normally very solid, it's normally very intellectual. It's like a free space to say what you want to say, because you know that you're talking to people who are very, very intellectual. When you go on social media and you throw conversations out sometimes, if I had done the same talk now on Instagram, I could imagine how much curses and insults I would have got just by saying I've never had a race experience, because so I know that nobody will stop to understand why I'm saying that, but this is a space in which is very, very intelligent. And so in case anyone watches this later on YouTube, whichever way it is, anytime you hear about these conversations, I will encourage you to be part of it, because it's always a very, very, I love intelligent platforms where you can have conversations with people, you learn things, you get powerful nuggets. Like now, listen to Dr. Alo speaking, even breaking down the word heritage, I never even saw it that way before, and she spoke something about representation, and it relates to the story which I told about the man in the train, which Amos more or less concluded about the same thing too, because in the whole story, what hurt me the most in that story when I observed it was the fact when the young boy joined in, and I said to myself, oh my Lord, look at what this is creating. So it wasn't bad enough because mine was old. He was telling an old man telling a lie. It was painful. But when the boy opened his mouth, I said to myself, what are we throwing into the world? And that's why I want to encourage everyone living here now. We are all heroes, as mothers, as fathers, as brothers, as sisters, as Black people going out in the world now. We represent. Do not close the door for other people because of your behaviors. You know, please do not do that. You know, when you go in somewhere, when you leave, let them say, this guy was Nigerian. We want another Nigerian back here now because we love the way this guy behaves and the way this guy works. Let it be that way. That is possible. Let's do that, please. You know, and second and finally, I'll now say, I know there's a question about microaggressions that was there. One thing about the world is now, I said to you, systemic is very difficult now because you cannot inbuild racism into the culture of a company. I know you can't write it into the law, so that's different. But it's the microaggressions we have to deal with every day. Let's try and calm ourselves and not take everything offensive. One thing I know I hear the most, I like to finish on a very interesting note. One thing I heard the most about people's names. You know, someone pronounces a name wrongly. Let me tell you now, I can't even pronounce Dr. Alo's last name correctly. I'm from Northern Nigeria. I can't pronounce it correctly. So why do I get offended because a white man couldn't pronounce it? I know we see that happen every often, and you know, it breaks my heart. Let me tell you guys now, my name in this conversation today has been pronounced wrong right from the beginning. But you know, because it's pronounced for my village, it's pronounced Tarfa. So the end has to go high. But nobody can know that. So why would I get offended because someone called it Tafa or called it Tarfa? It doesn't matter to me. You see? So because I understand. So let's thread with a lot of you know, let's go out there with love in our hearts. Let's not just be judgmental and say they're deliberately being offensive. Let's understand that it's lack of knowledge sometimes. Let's focus on educating people. Let's open doors and not close doors for the people behind us. And let's go out there and do great things. So thank you once again. Hopefully, we've all learned a lot. I'll say it again. Stay blessed, everybody. And we love you a lot.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tarfa. I was practicing that in my mind. I got it. Yay! I was
nice try, nice try.
Immediately
nice try.
said it. Yes, thank you so much. I'm so grateful. And I would like to use this opportunity to say a big, big, loud, massive thank you to every member of the Brains and Banter community for continuously lending your voices to effect intercontinental change. If you are just joining us, this is Brains and Banter. Here we engage in banter that matters. If you are not active, I would like to encourage you to please be active in the Brains and Banter community. If you like to share snippets of today's conversation, please do so on social media. We're on Instagram at Brains and Banter. I would like to also appreciate one more time our lead, our founder and our convener, the gorgeous, the brilliant, the truly dynamic, the erudite, Dr. Alo. Thank you so much for leading this conversation. And I would also like to appreciate, of course, Mr. Victor, time and the brilliant insights. And to everyone that has stayed on the call with us, we are grateful for your time. Thank you for engaging with us in banter that matters. Thank you for being part of the Brains and Banter community. And we look forward to changing the world with you. Please have a beautiful Saturday ahead. God bless you.